And as mentioned earlier, I am joined by the great Nick Searcy. Brother man, how you doing? And welcome to For Cannon's Sake.
Pretty good, Eric. How are you? I'm joining you live from my fabulous hotel room here in Nashville, Tennessee. You can see from the great backdrop there.
Right, and I appreciate you taking some time, man, out of your schedule to do this because, as I mentioned off air, man, this is a big deal for me, and I know a big deal for the audience considering the climate that we're in. And I just really want to get your perspective on really everything that's going on right now, but more so as it pertains to your own personal experience, because you're one of the few people who is out, if you will, about
Right.
where you're at politically. And what I love about you so much is that despite being among these deranged leftists, you have never backed down. You've never bent the knee. You've been firm on what it is that you are, and I love following your work. But so considering that you've been in the game as long as you've been, can you give us some perspective on that? Has that political slant that seems to have come into fruition like it has in recent years, has that always been there in your personal experience?
In my experience, yeah. I mean, I think they're a little more emboldened now. They don't feel like they have to hide it as much as they used to. But yeah, it's definitely been there. I mean, I can remember being at a table read in 2004 of a sitcom, and I was there the day after President Bush was reelected,
Mm.
and you could not believe the somberness, how sad everybody was, except for me and a couple other people that were on my side. But like, I mean, it really was it was ugly. And I remember one person at the table saying, "Boy, I wish somebody would just assassinate him." And I was
Wow.
like, "That's against the law, right?
Wow.
You can't say that." And but yeah, I think this sort of vicious hatred of conservatives and people who disagree with Democrats has been there for a long time. They're just like, I think the Trump years has pulled the mask off of everybody, and now they're just bold about it, and they think they're in the right, so they're not ashamed of it.
Yeah, and that goes right into what I've been talking about is that these guys, they live in this dimension where they can't possibly be right. They don't look at the world as if, okay, what they are doing is wrong. They are incorrect, factually or morally. It doesn't matter. It's that they seem to present this invisible enemy. Well, it's not so invisible because they project it onto you. That's how they view you, which is why I think so many of them have come out to just call people just whatever name they can possibly think of, white supremacists, Nazis. Just there's a bunch of nonsense to really pin on, like you mentioned, anybody they disagree with. I'm a black libertarian. They call me that. You know what I mean? It just
Right.
it doesn't matter. It's whoever's to the opposite of them that doesn't generally agree with them, and that's what we see in today's day and age. But we've talked about on the show a lot with what's happened with Gina Carano, formerly of Star Wars Mandalorian, and how she was the next target there, right? Because she was a part of a big property, a big brand, and she isn't in their club, so it's the same thing. So how do you view that whole situation in terms of how it played out, where you saw this coordinated, just vicious attack by way of a lot of folks in this industry, to the point to where unfortunately it led to her being fired, if you will, from the show. Like, is that something that you had even saw coming? Could you see that developing to the point to where, yeah, they really just gave in to this mob of lunatics and just really released this person from a contract because they were not a leftist?
Well, I think that what they've done is that they've unleashed something that they didn't expect, because what's happened with Gina Carano, I think ultimately is going to be a good thing, not only for Gina Carano but for the rest of us.
Right.
Because what's going to have to happen to Hollywood is that there's going to have to be a new Hollywood created, because Hollywood has ruined itself.
Okay.
They've destroyed their own reputations with at least 40 to 50% of the American people who are disgusted with them and won't buy anything that they sell anymore. And so what the Daily Wire is doing by making a deal with Gina Carano is what's going to happen throughout the country. They're going to have to spring up these alternative delivery systems of entertainment that bypass Hollywood, that bypass the leftists that want to shut down everybody that disagrees with them. And they're not going to necessarily censor leftists or keep liberals out. It's just that they're not going to punish people
Right.
like Gina Carano and me. I'm kind of like Gina Carano, just not as pretty. But people like us, we're going to be able to have our viewpoints come out as well. Nobody wants to shut them up, but they want to shut us up. And that's the difference.
Right. Yeah. And I think that you put it perfectly. And this is, like I said, they think that they're in this other dimension where they like to think that, well, it's equal playing field. Like, oh, well, Gina was just fired because of her thoughts. Like it had nothing to do with politics, though we see no example of this that exists on the opposite side. So again, they're living in a la la land. But I love what you brought up because it should give people some optimism, which is what I've been preaching, and that they're incentivizing people to come up with alternatives. Like we may have known that this has needed to exist for a long time, but now you're actively pushing people towards that direction. Like, okay, enough is enough. At some point, we have to create an alternative. And thank God for, whether it be with the internet and all these decentralization efforts, it's allowing us to really do that. We don't have to go maybe back when you started, like you had to go through those channels to get this information out, to get things distributed. And it's not like that as much anymore. It's a lot more easier for us to get this information out and these alternatives out to these people. So is that something, because again, you have just being an actor, producer, just in front lines, do you think that is something that is going to be viable, that people are going to be able to come up with alternatives that actually and legitimately compete with these big heads over at the more mainstream Hollywood side of things? Do you think that these alternatives are going to be truly viable? Of course, it's not going to happen immediately, but at least sometime down the line.
I think within a year, you're going to see a platform that competes with Netflix. I'm working with a guy on one now called Creado Studios, Creado Media. And what we're trying to build is a platform that is a delivery system for entertainment where the servers are not controlled by China, like the servers for Amazon are and the servers for Netflix are. And I think that that's been the stranglehold that Hollywood has had on the rest of the country, the rest of the entertainment business, is the distribution model. Everything had to go through them so you could get in a theater, so you could get on Netflix. Well, I think we're going to build things so that people like us, who they call white supremacists and racists and all that crap, we're going to have a way to deliver our content directly to the people that want to purchase it.
Right.
Rather than the situation you have now where you might find one or two things on Netflix that aren't repulsive that you do want to watch, but you have to pay the whole subscription fee and subsidize all the rest of it so that you can get that one or two or three things that you like. So I think that it's going to be developed. And what really has to happen is that conservative investors have to realize that we have got to invest in the culture.
Yes.
We have to invest in entertainment. We can't just cede it to the left like we've done for 50 years, because this is the result of it.
Bingo.
The result of it is that you have a whole nation of millennials that are pretty much brainwashed by popular entertainment into thinking that guys like you and me are Nazis. Yep. We're like Hitler. We're like worse than that. And so it makes perfect sense to them that we should be shut up, marginalized, unable to work. And if they ever get enough power, they'll just line us up and shoot us.
Absolutely. I know.
That's what leftists do.
Exactly. Historically, they've done it. But that is the point that I've been driving home for a long time. Me being in the metalcore and the hardcore scene in music, that was my thing, right? I was out libertarian, though coming from a very successful band. I was like, look, man, we're starting backwards, and we're gonna be open about what it is that we know it puts a target on our back, but we have to combat these guys because as long as we allow it to manifest itself as it has long before even I was born. You mentioned like 50 years, that this is the leftists, they played the long game, and we just sort of let them have it. And this is the result where you got folks my age and certainly younger who are as brainwashed as they will ever be. And now, unfortunately, they control all of these properties. But you brought up, I was just on Blaze, TV on News of Why It Matters, discussing exactly what you just mentioned, and that this neglect that a lot of conservatives and libertarians have had for the culture. And I want your thoughts on why do you think that's the case? Because it's a bizarre thing that they allowed that to happen, because it's like, I don't know if it's one of those things. I guess partially my theory is we believe that we have the best ideas on our side. We believe that we're the smartest people in the room, which often we are going to be if we're surrounded by leftists. However, unfortunately, like the people that we're dealing with, they realize that this is, if they have that cultural appeal, they can kind of skip over that. They don't have to have reason. They don't have to have logic or even facts or truth behind their statements. So why is it that not only have you not only seen the lack of investment, but you've even seen in some cases the utter neglect for culture? Like, we shouldn't be involved in that. Why do you think they went that direction? Like a lot of conservatives, a lot of libertarians went that direction, which I would have maybe thought that would have been suicidal. They would have saw that coming, but yet here we are.
Yeah, I think a friend of mine puts it like this. He says if you had two libraries, one built by conservatives and one built by liberals, the conservative library would be all about science and history and facts and geometry and economics and all this nonfiction stuff. And the liberal library would be all stories and poems and short, novels and you'd have more fun in the liberal library.
Right.
That's just a fact. And so I think that for so often conservatives have thought that stuff was not important, like the stories that your kids read or the cartoons that your kids watch. Conservatives just weren't noticing.
Right.
They just weren't paying attention, and because they didn't consider it important. But what they don't realize is that teaches your kids, that seeps into their minds and becomes part of their system. And if you don't watch that, if you don't participate in that, then the conservative point of view is never expressed in those ways. And that's what we have to start doing. We have to do what they've done. And it's going to be, like you said, it's going to be a long journey, but we have to start taking back culture a little bit at a time, one show at a time, one movie at a time, whatever, and start rebuilding the things that the Hollywood left has basically destroyed.
Absolutely.
At least since 1970, it has been a decidedly anti-American, anti-faith, and anti-conservative message that's coming out of Hollywood.
Yeah, and they're spitting on you. It's like it seems that now obviously they've hijacked a lot of these properties and ran them into the ground, but it's like they seem to be appealing to this weird side of just human beings, where it's not about making something that the consumer wants to see. It's about, like, you need to be lectured, you need to be told about, it's like, are you good enough to watch my media? And this is, it's one of those things. And it's so bizarre because I feel like, and that's why I'm so optimistic, because at some point that is an unreliable bunch to try to appeal to. And at some point, I don't think that's going to work. It works right now. It's lucrative maybe right now, but definitely as these alternatives start to pick up, I believe that they're going to be in trouble if they're going all in on trying to appeal to that mob of people who have no interest in bottom lines. They just have every interest of just lecturing every single individual about everything.
Yeah, there's two things going on in Hollywood right now. One is that the things that are being made, they're not making them for an audience. They're making them to impress each other. They're making things to show each other, see how woke I am, see we're all on the same page, because they know that their next job is not going to come from the audience. It's going to come from the people sitting next to them who are going, oh, I like that show. They're one of us. We're going to bring them along. And that's one thing that's going on. I think another thing that's going on is they have been freed from the financial responsibilities of their products by them being on streaming services, because streaming services are subscription services. So they can make 100 bad propagandistic, lame ass leftist pieces of crap, and then people will pay the subscription service because they want to watch Star Wars.
Exactly. So with that being said, in the direction that we're going in, and again, just understanding the history, I'll give you an example here. Being a musician for as long as I've been, and being a comic book enthusiast for as long as I've been, I've had people that work with Marvel, that have worked with DC, people within the music industry, people that I've toured with, who feel as if they have to be in the closet. So it's one of those things where it's like, man, I agree with a lot of what you're saying, but I can't show that I align with you. I talk about some of the prints that I have like in my backdrop all the time. Like people are like, where did you get those? Well, actually the artist, the original artist of the original work had it blown up and sent it to me, believe it or not. But, you know, and so they like my work. It's just that they feel like they have to be this way in order to get jobs, to get any sort of funding or something like that. Has that been your experience, like in the music, in being involved in Hollywood and being in the movie industry and film industry? Has that been your experience where people will, like maybe whether it be different producers, the actors, the actresses, maybe not say it publicly, but they'll reach out to you behind closed doors, nudge you or something, and they're like, man, dude, you're spot on, and this is crazy, but I just can't do it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, crew members definitely. It's like the crew. At least the crew is probably over 50% on our side on most things, and they'll come up and be, man, I watch your walks on Twitter, man. I'm on your side, you know, and all that stuff. And then even actors. I mean, I know actors that you would know. People would know them by face, if not by name, who come up to me all the time and say, I agree with what you're saying, but if I said that, I'd never work again.
Yeah.
And I go, well, I work. I mean,
exactly.
I said, I work. And they said, well, you work a lot more. I said, yeah, but I'm lazy. I don't want to work.
But no, like, do you think that's like, because I was talking about this morning, challenging my audience. Like, look, I think at this point you're seeing what I think the Gina Carano thing, it may be one of those instances throughout history where we point to that as like a turning point where people finally was like, okay, there's something severely wrong and we have to make an adjustment. So my challenge was to people in all of these different subcultures. I said, look, out yourself. Like out yourself and people that have been investing in people that hate them, start putting as much support, either be it financially or morally, whatever. Just go support these people that have now added themselves. Is that something that you would agree with? Like it might as well happen, like, because until people understand that we're a thing, they're going to continue to just run everything into the ground.
Absolutely. And I think that Gina showed the way. I think the way Gina Carano has handled this from the beginning, she never backed down.
Yes.
She never apologized. Too many people say, I'm sorry if my words hurt somebody. No, don't
ever do that. Yeah.
You never can apologize to a leftist because they look at it like you've just signed a letter right before your execution.
Yep.
You've given them exactly what they need to terminate you. But she showed the way. You don't apologize to these people. You say, this is what I believe. I'm not a white supremacist. I'm not what you say I am, but this is what I believe, and I'm not going to back down from it. And I think the more people do that, the more that they're not going to be able to do what they've been doing. They're not, because what they do, they make an example of Gina Carano, not just to punish her, but to send a message to say, don't any of you out there try this. We will finish you just like we did her. And so the more people stand up and go, no, we're not going to put up with it. You don't get to characterize me in that way. And we'll build our own entertainment system and screw you. That's what we have to do.
I love it. And I think that's so key. It's just the being unapologetic. That's certainly the term that I use is just as important as outing yourself. Like, you don't apologize. So many people, I've been canceled, I don't know, 75 times probably this year already, of people just coming for my neck because I said something in a video they didn't like. They finally discovered the music or something like that, or they don't like the way that I view comic book material that they've been running into the dirt, and they hate it. But when you show that sense of strength, you not only would gain support and respect from people, but they understand like they can't just walk over you, which is what they've been allowed to do for so long because they expect you to just submit to everything it is that they've done. So I appreciate you actually saying that, because I'm telling people like, dude, I get it that it may seem like an unrealistic, difficult thing to do now, but the more people that do it, the less powerful they actually are. Like I see you talk about your walks, which I want to discuss here in a little bit. And you're just so unapologetic about what it is that you do. You get out there, you'll post on Twitter and it doesn't matter. Like people know, yes, this is a person that was on the big series, Justified and what have you, doesn't even care. And you can almost see them malfunctioning at the idea that you're not going to back down because they expect you to do exactly that. So I appreciate you certainly saying that. But going to my next point, the walks, which I've been loving on Twitter. Can you please explain to the audience what those are about, and really that experience with Dictator Newsom over there in California? Because I'm in Texas, so I'm speaking as an outsider. How loony is it out there?
It's so crazy. I mean, those walks started because they put out this edict like right before Christmas that you shouldn't take walks outside that are non-essential. That you can't, it's too dangerous to walk outside. So I just started doing one every day. I'm not going anywhere. I'm just wandering around, and it's sort of, I've done 50 of them now. It's getting a little crazy, but yeah, I mean, the thing about California is that the rules have been so nonsensical. It's like they put out, can't walk anywhere, it's too dangerous. And then the latest one was like, after they got 1.4 million signatures to recall Gavin Newsom, he decided, okay, I'll let all the restaurants open those outdoor patios that I made them build at great expense, and I'll let them have that. But you can have people eat at your patio, but you can't turn on the television. They put out they said because the television is too dangerous. It'll make people stay longer and watch the game or some crap. And it's just, I think that what's happening in California, I mean, at least to me, it seems so nonsensical that the rules are just there to make you obey. Yeah. They're not to protect anybody from anything. They're just to condition you so that you will do whatever you are told. Yeah. And I wish I could say that a lot more people in California are catching on, but I mean, just from my walking around, there's an awful lot of compliance going on in California. I mean, I see people out walking their dogs with a mask on, and I like go by them and go, why don't you have a mask on that dog? That dog can breathe on somebody, I mean, it's just crazy. It's just, they're quite silly out here in California. But, I think the more that people sort of start to catch on of the absurdity of these things that we're being asked to do, like now it's like 2 masks are better than 1. And it's like, okay, well, why not 4? Yeah. Why wouldn't 4 masks be even better than 2?
Yeah, exactly. And 5, man. Why stop there? And I covered that nonsensical double mask study. It was just, oh my God, it was so. It doesn't even make sense. Like, I think that's exactly what's happening. Is that it's a more conditioning thing. Obedience training is more so what it is, and they're getting away with it because you got people just listening to these anything they say. They could be hypocritical, contradictory, withhold information. You heard that happening in California. Yeah. Cuomo got caught recently withholding what is it, 10,000 nursery home deaths or something crazy like that. And It's like these guys it's like they're spitting in your face. Like, yeah, we're doing things that make absolutely no sense, but we're going to do it anyway because you're not going to do anything about it.
And the media gives them cover. The media backs them up. The media sort of says, if you're not complying with this, you're being irresponsible. You're going to kill somebody's grandma and all that stuff. It's just, the whole thing is a setup. And the more people that start to realize it and start to push back, just like, I'm not doing that anymore. That's what it's going to take is people just going, I'm not going to comply. I'm not going to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah. To go into like the subculture thing, because I know a lot of people don't understand. I've had to give people some advice on the music industry and navigating some of the metal and the hardcore scene. I want to get your perspective on just obviously being in Hollywood, being just involved in general, because there's a lot of people that are going to have questions about how do they get gigs? What is the process of how this takes place? Because again, being part of, I know Justify was a huge deal as an example. So could you walk us through, like, okay, actor or screenwriter or whatever wants to get involved? Like, what is the process for these up and comers who may not be knowledgeable, may even have the talent, which is what I'm trying to put a spotlight on. There's a lot of libertarian, non-leftist, conservative people that are really, really talented. It's just they don't know how to navigate. So how does that work? God wants to get on, big hit series. Obviously, they're not going to start there. But what is the process If not what they had been doing, or maybe how do you feel they a little bit of mixing, I guess, what you have been doing, and really how do we future proof this, because we know that there's going to be some cultural revolution that happens. So how does this work as an actor or a screenwriter or producer? If you're trying to get started and become someone that is calling the shots in the film industry, if you will.
Well, it's funny because I get asked that a lot, obviously, and the whole the way forward in this business has changed. It's very different from when I came up.
Okay.
I started out in that old way of like, you got to do a play, and you get somebody to come see you in the play, and then you get a little part here and there, and you work your way up, and that sort of, it doesn't exist anymore.
Okay.
Because the theater's all shut down. The liberals have
it's true.
shut down the theater in New York. You can't do a play. But the other thing that's shifted is that since the means of production, the cameras and all that stuff is so available now to everybody, it used to be that you couldn't make a movie without Hollywood because they had all the equipment.
Right.
Now you've got all the equipment right there in your hands.
Yeah.
You can make a movie with your iPhone that looks as good as the movies they show on television. So now I just tell everybody it's all about content. It's all about creating your own content and finding your audience and building something and bring the audience to you. That old paradigm of you've got to go impress the people in Hollywood in order to get your message out there. That doesn't exist. That's not there anymore. And there's still pockets of it, but frankly, you have to be part of the woke culture to actually participate in that. You're not going to get if you're not one of them, you're not going to get your ideas put through there anyway. So the best way for you all out there to go forward, if you want to be an actor or a writer, a producer, director, you got to create your own content, find other people to help you do it, and make your own stuff.
Makes sense. Yeah, that's easy enough. And that's why I kind of wanted to shift on that question, because I was like, well, it is about to be a change. So maybe the traditional way. I mean, we saw that with music. It's funny that you kind of seeing that play out with the film industry, but it happened with music. It was like you had to go through the label, you had to go through the which got you on the radio to do all that back in the Gap. And now, my band, we 2017, we dropped the record self-release, and we top the Billboard charts. It just happens. It's like you can do it's at your disposal nowadays, because the technology has been either decentralized or made so affordable to where we can do it ourselves. Whereas in the past, we had to go through those channels, and it seems like we don't have to do that anymore, which actually excites me going into the future. So with that being said, we know what Daily Wire is doing and all of that. What in Nick Searcy's future are you working on in the film industry that could get us sort of excited about what's to come in the future?
Well, I've got a movie that's available right now, a documentary that I made last year. It's available at shedhisgrace.com, and it's a documentary that has some of the people from the Daily Wire in it. I interviewed Herman Cain and Alveda King and Ambassador Andrew Young in it, and it's a movie about the relationship between the Bible and the Constitution throughout the years, and it's also a comedy. So
nice.
There's that's out there right now. But I'm trying to put together, not only with the guy Criado Studios trying to put together a platform, but I have 2 or 3 different projects right now that are in various levels of funding that we're going to make outside the Hollywood system, and we're going to release outside the Hollywood system. One's about the Revolutionary War, and one's about gospel quartet music in the 60s. And, they're just these things that I happen to care about that are not necessarily sexy to traditional Hollywood. And I think more and more, as I'm raising the money for this and talking to conservative investors, they're more and more available to this idea that we have to engage in the culture. And so that's what I see myself doing over the next few years. So, my career before I just get so much money that I just don't know what to do with it. I just want to do a few things that I really care about, that I really have a personal investment in, rather than just going around with my hat in hand trying to get an acting job in some show or other. So I that's my focus, and you can find out what I'm doing by my locals.com thing, or the daily walks, the
Yeah.
walks on Twitter and on Facebook and stuff. But that's really my focus is I want to make a few more feature films like Gosnell,
Yeah.
like Shed His Grace, before I retire and just go live on a yacht somewhere.
Yeah, that is awesome. And it's good to hear that, like I said, that optimism is something I think that a lot of us need now, because I don't think it's all doom and gloom. I think that this is creating an opportunity for us here. And
Absolutely right. I think the fact that you have to look at the fact that Hollywood has destroyed itself as an opportunity,
yeah,
not as like I'll never make it in that business. It's like you don't need them anymore. You don't need to make it in their stupid business. You can make your own business.
yep. And that's huge. I mean, that's huge for up and comers to hear that, because I mean, we've seen that with the music industry. It's just pumped in their head, so full of just nonsense that, okay, this is the standard and you have to do that. And we were the guys that were like, why? Like, I understand and that's what everybody else is doing, but why? Like, can we not do it our own way and it'd be more lucrative for us? We don't have to go through those channels. And then it's unrealistic until it's not, until it's not anymore. This is what I always say. So that optimism from someone in the industry, I think it's valuable right now, because a lot of people are writers, actors, actresses that are out or want to come out as non-leftist, and they fear as if that will ruin them. But like you mentioned, there is an opportunity here, and there's a market for it. There's a lot of people that are hungry for this type of information.
Well, I mean, it brings me to something I wanted to ask you about the music
Yeah.
business, because I have a bunch of friends that are musicians, and a lot of what their income depended on live performance. And now you have a situation where the Democrats have pretty much in all the states that they control, they've eliminated the possibility of playing live.
Yes.
And how do you become good at being a musician? How do you get a good band together if you don't have any place to play?
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those that is, I mean, I've watched my industry just be completely derailed. And it sucks because, you see these venues who I've been around housing musicians like ourselves for a very long time. And it's not that, I think, and this is what kills me about these Democrats, because they look at it like, well, all right, well, it's fine. We'll just shut it down for a little bit. Everybody's going to come back. They don't seem to understand that there's a lot of people whose businesses are done. There's no, well, this is over and we're coming back. No, they've shut down for good. They were dipping into their savings for maybe month 3, and that was all they could stand. And you've been shutting them down, and we're going in about a year almost, which is unbelievable for me to say. We had to push back our album, like our album number 2, our sophomore album. We can't put it out because we feel like it's career suicide to release it and not be able to tour on a sophomore album. Yeah. It sucks. So yeah, you're right. It's created this dilemma. But I had Phil Labonte. He's in the same genre of me. He's All That Remain, a band called All That Remains, and he was talking about how this was much like the film industry, a wake up call for a lot of people that are in this industry to say, okay, obviously the way we had been doing things didn't make sense. But not only just that, the people that they would generally support have told you they don't give a crap about your industry. They've deemed you as non-essential. They have said that you're not allowed to work, you can't work, and that's not only is it criminal, but you come to this sort of actualization, which is what I've had a lot of success, and I'm trying to turn that energy like, okay, not only did you see something that's wrong with in terms of how we distribute our music in the industry, but you're seeing the people that y'all been peddling their nonsense for so long simply do not care about you, like at all. Like they've made it abundantly clear that you can't make a living. Like you mentioned, so many of us now we own our music, so we can make money off of people listening to the record. Most musicians, not the case. Their entire paycheck, their livelihood is dependent upon them playing in front of a crowd. And you have stripped that away from them. And it sucks to see, because I've seen a lot of struggling musicians, but also seen a lot of struggling, like I say, venue owners. And they see these long posts on Facebook or something where they're like, guys, we tried. We tried to turn the rest of the bar into like this restaurant to fake being open, sell some wings or something like that. It's just simply not working. And we're going to have to shut down for good. And that's painful, man. That's absolutely painful to do that. But, I guess to turn the question back on you, like energy, like, is that a way, like, how do we turn that negative energy into people? I guess, realizing and actualizing, needing to actualize what the hell is going on and what's been taking place, that a lot of folks have been, let's say, parading around their own personal destruction. It's just that it was all good and gravy until pandemic hits, and then they say, no, go screw yourself.
Right. I mean, it's also what it really, the pain for me too is they don't consider the fact that people have to develop their talents.
Yeah.
People have to develop, like in stand-up comedy, for instance. You know, it's like if you can't get up in front of a crowd and work on your material, you're not going to progress in that way, and you're not going to see what works and what doesn't. And so you're going to give up. You're just going to quit. You can't go on that way. And it's the same way with musicians. It's even the same way with like young athletes. It's like you have these, like in California, you know, my son was a basketball player. He's just turned 21, and he played basketball his whole life, all the way up until, you know, senior in high school, AAU leagues. And they're like, there are no AAU leagues. They don't have any youth basketball. They're not letting sixth graders play basketball because of this virus. And they just go, oh, we're just going to you're just going to quit for a year or two. And it's like, when you quit for a year or two for a 12, 13, 14-year-old basketball player that's trying to, you know, develop his skills and everything, you're not going to get that back. You cannot replace that. And I think that what is going to have to happen with all the live performance, the sort of those kinds of art forms, we're going to have to realize that these people are not going to let you do what you do. You're going to have to make them let you do it. We're going to have to stop obeying what they tell us to do. And I think if all the restaurants, all the bars, all those places, if everybody just stopped doing it, but then you have the other problem of, like, you have a scared population that won't come and buy a ticket, you know? So it's a tough thing. I don't know what the solution on that. The live performance thing is really hard for me I can't figure out what the solution is to that.
I've said that civil disobedience is going to have to be our way out of this anyway, because they just keep kicking the can down the road anyway. Like, oh, wait until 15 days to slow the spread. Then that turned into wait till a vaccine. And they said, well, we got vaccines, but no, you still got to shut down. We don't it's like they're just toying with people's lives, and they don't really care. And it really sucks. But they
got theirs. That's the problem.
Yeah,
you know,
they're fine.
They're not shutting down the government.
Yeah, no, not at all. They're giving themselves raises, actually, amidst all of this. But you bring up such a great point with those industries that are so determined. Like you mentioned, youth development. I have something I never even considered. Like that senior who, you know, missed a year out. Maybe that was his ticket to get scouted, you know, by a college or something like that, and then that just goes by the wayside, like, because he couldn't train in the same capacity that he could before. Like, that's detriment. That could ruin someone's like life. Like, I don't think they understand that.
I swear. I kid my son about it. I was maybe the worst trophy dad in history. I was just like, I was so into my son's athletic career. I think probably more into it than he was, you know, but if this had happened during the time when he was like his senior year, when he was most valuable player at his high school, if they had shut that league down then, I don't know what I would have done. I'd probably be in jail. I probably would have strangled somebody. I mean, it's so frustrating to see these kids' lives ruined over this nonsense.
Yeah, it's painful to watch, man. And when you put it that way, when it comes to development for people that beat on their craft, so it's like it's with the youth, it's with, you know, folks our age. Like, you just bring these are years that nobody's getting younger. You know what I mean? We don't age backwards, so we can't get those opportunities that are missed. Like, it's this sort of compound domino effect that they don't even care to consider when it comes to the policies that they enact. Like, oh, how does this derail someone's life? It's just, we'll shut them down. Like, they can't even concede or come to terms with the fact that, you know, you look at these would be suicide, depression, and all these other things that have gone up amidst all of that, trying to save people from a survival rate of 99%, which is it's criminal. But it has a compound effect that is derailing people's livelihoods in more ways than one, and they don't even want to concede it. Like it's not if they shut it down, Listen to us. We're the experts, and we'll take care of you. And then they just slap you in the face. And here we're dealing with another, with the whole Biden presidency, which is the last thing that I wanted to ask you about. Was okay, Biden, whether he's elected. My thing, and I'll tell you my perspective, and I get yours. But my perspective was that, look, this may have been the fire that may have needed to be lit under non-Democrat supporting people. Like, again, that scales. It's conservatives, libertarians, centrists, whatever they call themselves. And I said that maybe this is the fire that they needed, because a lot of people are going to be not only in opposition to what's going to happen, but you even got people having buyer's remorse already with whole Biden, with the union thing and the Keystone Pipeline and all of that. But do you think, because I personally am more optimistic about it, because I see, for example, a lot of conservatives start going full libertarian because they're like, this makes no sense. We need to get rid of all these governmental from the policies, these positions, and all of this sort of stuff, which what I love to hear. They become a little more rebellious. Am I being naive and being just a little more optimistic that people see this word that I'm not going to say for good old YouTube, but this person in Joe Biden, who is now their newly installed president alongside Kamala Harris? Yeah. Am I being naive to think that there's some optimism here that people are going to, I don't know, be a little more rebellious to the establishment?
Well, I hope so. I'm glad you're optimistic. I'm not so optimistic, okay, just because I think that the corruption that we saw in this election has been building for a long time, just like the march through the institutions. And I think that what the Democrats are going to try to do nationally is what they've done in California, which is make it virtually impossible for any of them to be voted out of office. I mean, they changed the rules out in California about all the mail-in ballots, and all that stuff. They're going to continue to do that. But one thing they've done in California is they changed the primary rules so that the top two vote getters are the two that are left on the ballot, even if they're from the same party.
Oh, wow.
So the last time Senator Feinstein was elected, it was thing one and thing two. They were both Democrats.
Wow.
You just had a choice of which one's going to be worse.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
And I think that to me, what's going to happen is that, we also see that Trump pulled the mask off of everybody. And we see that a lot of the Republicans were actually part of the Democrat Party.
Absolutely.
And we still see that today with these 4, 5, or 6 senators that are saying they might vote to impeach a private citizen who's not president anymore. So I think that the good thing about it is that the mask has come off of everybody, and we now see what we're actually dealing with. But I think what we have to know that we're up against, and we have a uniparty of corruption that is running this country that is never going to willingly give back the power to the people. They have nothing but contempt for us. So we can be as rebellious as we want, but we have to realize that we're going to have to do something pretty effective in order to destroy that stranglehold that they have right now with all the corruption in the voting system that they have basically codified into law by winning this election.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like, so they may not let up. Definitely, if they understood, well, it worked the first time. Like, why not do it again, or rather ramp it up? Yeah, that makes all the sense in the world, which is going to be interesting to see sort of that play out. So yeah, I mean, again, I appreciate you giving us all the perspective of what's going on. Certainly in Hollywood, because like I said, the audience needs to hear that from someone that's actually involved. I think it's comforting to be like, dude, we'll get over this. We'll be able to move forward. It's just going to take some readjustments. So is there anything before we part, anything that you want to plug? Again, I know you mentioned briefly about what you were working on, but is there anything else that you want to plug for certainly the audience to go check out? Of course, I have all of in the show notes, everything that they need to find you. But is there anything that, again, you're working on or that you want to plug that the audience needs to go check out?
Yeah, there's God Shed His Grace on Thee, which is available at shedhisgrace.com. And there's also a movie that came out this week that's also made outside the Hollywood system. It's a streaming-only movie called The Man from Nowhere. And you can find that at manfromnowheremovie.com, manfromnowheremovie.com. And that's a movie that that I acted in, and it's a nice little family friendly film, and I'm going to continue to keep non-essentially walking around and making fun of liberals. You know, that's what I do, and that's it's key to keep doing that, because that's the
Absolutely.
one thing they can't stand. Leftists cannot stand to be made fun of. It makes them furious.
Yeah, I said, well, you don't apologize and you're mocking it because they try to mock and shame you and then it doesn't work and then you mock and shame them. They just malfunction. They don't know how to deal with it. And I love watching it play out on your timeline the way it plays out on mine, because they understand that we're not budging and we're not going anywhere. And that's something that I want to certainly instill in the everybody else, because these guys can be defeated.
Yeah.
Most definitely. Well, again, Nick, man, I appreciate you joining me for this episode of For Canon's Sake. Hopefully that we can get you back on soon. Definitely when you got some things in the work, because I think now more than ever we're going to need to put a spotlight on those alternatives to Hollywood, because a lot of people are gonna be itching for it. So again, appreciate you so much for joining us.
My pleasure, Eric. Your voice is so important. I'm proud to be on your show, and I'll come back anytime. We'll figure it out.
Thank you, man. Appreciate that.